Let's use one of the most popular and performant languages in the world, Rust, to build a AWS Lambda URL. How do we do this? Well, if we take a look at what AWS Lambda provides, there's a new service that allows you to expose a URL. So it's very trivial to build a essentially low cost but high performance URL REST-based service using AWS Lambda. Okay, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, I have the code right here inside of Visual Studio Code. And let's go ahead and walk through it. I'm using a program called Cargo Lambda. And when you first build out something with Cargo Lambda, let's go ahead and just try it out real quick. If I just say Cargo Lambda new test, it's going to ask me if I want to build an HTTP function. If I say yes, then it'll give me a bunch of boilerplate code. And you can see what that boilerplate code looks like right here. So this is pretty good if I want to do request parameters. In my scenario, though, what I want to do is I want to actually parse a URL. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into this Rust AWS Lambda section here, and I'm going to cd into add URL. Now I have the imports here. So I have add Lambda HTTP. Then I have the serialization for JSON. How do I use that? Well, I go to Cargo 2ML and I have cert a JSON right here. Next up, I go through and I just tweak this function a little bit. So what I say is I extract the URL path from the incoming request. Now, of course, I could use some third-party library to do this, but just for the sake of a demo, I'm going to parse it myself. And then I'm going to split this up into a collection. I then grab the first part. I then grab the second part. And then now all I need to do is take the sum that's passed in this case an A and a B, and then I pass that into a JSON payload. Next up, I build the response right here and I return back a JSON payload. Now, how do we actually run this? Pretty straightforward here. I'm going to run make watch, and this is going to invoke this server. Now, I'm going to do a split screen here, and I'm just going to hand code a call to the URL. So I use curl. I'll say curl localhost 9090, and we'll say add 2 and 2. And what happens? It wasn't able to find it because that's the wrong port. I'm going to do 9000. Aha, perfect. So we've got this total result here. Now, pretty easy actually to then take it to the final level. So if I go to a makefile here, all I need to do is do a build and deploy. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's actually kill this terminal here, and let's just do a make build and make deploy. So we'll say make build and make deploy. Let's see what happens. So what it's going to do is it's going to build it for ARM, which is the cheapest runtime for Lambda. It's going to create an execution role. It's going to get all this stuff set up, and then finally it's going to deploy it. So this particular deploy process, because I'm not using infrastructure as code, I'm going to need to do one final step, which is pretty easy. Let's go over to our functions here. Let's find 9 seconds ago the deployment. Let's go to add URL. And let's just go to configuration here and just add function URL. So we go here, we say, hey, just for a demo, I'm going to do no authentication. And all I need to do now is grab this function URL, go back to my terminal, or I mean, I could also do it in the Cloud Shell, but let's go ahead and curl this, and let's add in the URL. So we'll say add 2 and 2. Trivial. So pretty easy to actually build these kind of standalone high performance URLs using the Rust framework here with Cargo Lambda. And you can see the code is actually not too bad to build from scratch. Of course, you can always use third-party libraries, but really Rust is a viable option for modern REST-based serverless applications.